Hello my friends, I'm Rich Larson and I'm the IRC Tire Guy. Today we will be comparing my experience on all the different brands I've put hard enduro time on. The current beta versus the former GasGas, Sherco, KTM, and Husqvarna. Through the years of riding and competing on different brands, I've not only experienced mechanical progressions in performance, but also I've grown as a rider and a tester, learning how to feel and adjust to each differing machine. I want to start this comparison by reiterating something I've said before on this channel. I've honestly enjoyed every one of these machines. If you want a black and white answer on which one of these bikes are my favorite, you're not going to get it. Any one of these bikes can win a hard enduro. The ability and willingness to adjust and adapt to each one of these bikes lies in the rider's hands. Each one of these machines has its pros and cons in each scenario. And as a rider that's not affiliated with any one of these brands, my opinions are exactly what I would say to any one of you viewers face to face. So let's get into it. And once again, settle in because there's a lot of info coming at you. Now, we just did our full review on the beta, which you can check out right here. That video is specifically about the performance of the beta itself. Today, we'll compare the differences in the feel of the beta in relation to each bike. And of course, we have to start with something that, in my opinion, is one of the most important parts of the bike for hard enduro, the engine characteristics. Each engine has its own characteristics. Of course, 3 bikes are TPI machines and basically under the same umbrella company of KTM, and 2 are carbureted. Now, we'll get more into the specifics of carb versus TPI a little later, but for now, let's just talk about engine power, torque, and for me, the most important, luggability and tractability. Starting with raw top-end power, I've felt the KTM branded TPIs have always had the ability to rev to the moon. I like the way the bikes climb, rev out, and pull at the top of the power. They get better and better every year with every engine aspect. I've tested TPIs every year since 2019. 250s and 300s, and they all have great top end power. I remember noticing the smoother top end when switching over to the Sherco. It wasn't that it was any slower, it just didn't rev out as quickly. In my opinion, the beta has a similar, quicker revving, powerful characteristic of the KTM, at times almost more powerful. I'd say the Sherco was the tamest feeling on the top. Now, moving on to torque, to me the beta has impressive explosive power. It's a fun bike to ride due to the snappy bottom end feel. The GasGas, KTM, and Husky all have that TPI snap. With the correct input of throttle, the bike will do exactly what it's told, but it feels different to that of a carb. Again, we'll touch on that more, but straight to the torque and snap ranking, I'd say the GasGas is at the top of the ranking when comparing all the TPIs. And after adding the TSP head and remap to the GasGas, it allowed the machine to retain that snappy power of stock, but added a more smooth power output where you need it in hard enduro situations, on the bottom tractable end. The GasGas with the TSP head and remap and the beta were closely matched as far as snap and tractability. They just have 2 different kinds of snap, carbureted snap and TPI snap. The Sherco has the smoothest power, maybe not the snappiest of the bunch, but with that being said, the most important aspect in hard enduro to me is tractability. I said it when I first rode the bike, and I'm going to retain the Sherco has the highest ability to hold traction when it matters. The way the bike would lug and track forward with ease and momentum to me is hard to beat. I know in my review of the beta I mentioned it's the best running bike I've ever ridden, and I still stand by that. But that doesn't mean it's the most usable power for hard enduro. Does that mean I'd pick one over the other? Not necessarily. Maybe I'll say the beta is a bit more fun to ride, but the Sherco is a traction machine. Again, when talking Tractability, the two-stroke performance modified GasGas and the Beta are closely matched, just different. So obviously, the difference here is TPI versus carb. So let's talk about that. Again, each of the KTM umbrellaed motorcycles have that specific TPI feel. Of course, they each differ in little ways, but they're all ridden somewhat similar. As I've said in past episodes, you can have two identical bikes and they're going to feel different. Doesn't matter if they're TPI or carbed. I've found TPIs are ridden with a heavy focus on your throttle action and input. When you begin to adjust and master this way of riding TPIs, they can work perfectly in any situation. I'm not saying it in a negative way, but TPIs feel artificial. Again, it's not a bad artificial, it's just different. They put out exactly what you put in with your throttle. Whereas with a carburetor, it's almost like you're always adjusting to the bike's output. It can feel like you're more tied in to the machine itself. This is always a hard aspect of TPI versus carb for me to explain, but it's almost like with a carb, I have more room for error within the input of my throttle. If I give the bike too much or too little, I can correct that mistake easier compared to the TPIs. When the tire breaks loose on a TPI, I almost have to let off completely. Whereas with a carb, the throttle input has some wiggle room. A good way for me to explain this is seeing how much more I use the clutch on a TPI versus a carb. I'm not clutching the bike because it's underpowered. I'm using the clutch to control the power. With the TPI, I find working the clutch much more, feathering and slipping, allows for a more increased control of the RPMs to the ground for traction. Whereas with the Sherco, and especially the Beta, holding the clutch just past that engagement point seems to be where the machine likes to track. So speaking of the clutch, we have to mention, I still believe KTM makes a better clutch than any current hard enduro brand that I've ridden. Their plates are truly bulletproof. You can put hundreds of hours on one set of plates and they don't seem to wear. The Beta's clutch is passable. You can tell when it starts to get hot, it feels a little bit grabby. I've had that burning smell coming from the Beta when I really abuse it. Again, I'm hard on the clutch. And on the Beta, I'm still using the original plates, so I have no real complaints. Although, I can still tell the KTM outranks the Beta when it comes specifically to the clutch. But as we've mentioned, the 2022 Betas may have that fixed with an all-new diaphragm clutch, so I'm interested in testing that. The stock 2021 Sherco clutch for hard enduro is at the bottom of the list. I was replacing the stock plates once a month. That being said, Recluse makes a manual replacement that works so much better. If I was to own a 2021 Sherco, I'd immediately replace the stock clutch with a Recluse manual clutch. And I'm also interested in testing a 2022 Sherco at some point. Now onto a suspension comparison. The Sherco has all KYB, the Beta has KYB forks and a Sachs rear shock, and then WP components on the KTM Husky and GasGas. And truthfully, that's the order I rate them in. Sherco stock was better than the Beta. The Beta better than the KTM umbrellaed bikes. But I'll be straight up, I'm not picky when it comes to suspension. I know that's sacrilege to most of the fast moto guys or fast desert guys, but frankly, I've done pretty well on stock suspension setups, no matter the bike. I'm not saying expensive suspension isn't awesome. I'm just saying for hard enduro, tire setup and tractability is much more important. Now, some final thoughts on the comparison. The simplicity and design of the Beta trumps all to me. The Beta is a easy to work on bike, and that means a lot to me. From the wiring design to the way the pipe is tucked up into the frame, the Beta has a well thought out design that I love. Parts availability isn't too bad. I haven't had problems sourcing what I need. Compared to that of when I owned a Sherco, it was a bit harder to get what I needed. needed. Now I have to say I've owned 2 bikes since the Sherco, and since then the brand itself has gained popularity. I'm sure parts availability has and is going to continue to increase, but be sure to keep that in mind. For a rider like myself who is usually on the bike just about every day, I need my parts yesterday. I hate not being able to ride because I'm waiting on parts. That's why it's so hard to beat the powerhouse of KTM. There's basically 3 bike brands that run a lot of the same parts. That's triple the availability. And it's nice not worrying about finding parts. I'll say again, I truthfully love every one of these bikes for different reasons. My favorite one is the one that I'm on in the moment. I hope that this video helps you guys understand the differences in each one of these machines. If you're enjoying the channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as follow us on Instagram at IRC Moto and my personal Instagram page at RichLarson511. And until next time, keep shredding.